I decided I wanted to become an architect sometime around during high school. I didn't know anything about the career, except that a lot of people often say that you need to be really good at math and drawing. Even though I wasn't too good at either, I decided I still wanted to try to become one because it sounded like a cool idea to me. That's pretty much the only reason why. On my first day, I sat down for my very first class, Design 1. I had no idea what to expect. A few minutes later, the professor showed up with her iPhone in hand. She did not say anything. She just stood in front of the class, held up her phone, and snapped a picture. She said that the reason she did this was because when the semester was over, she promised that half of us would have quit. That was my first day of school. I promise you, I felt like getting up and leaving. I wish I would have had a better idea of what was in store for me so that I would not have had such a shock. And that's why I made this video, to give you an idea as to what architecture school is really like. For starters, you can pretty much divide architecture school into two parts, lower division and upper division. Lower division is made up of technical drawing classes, design classes from level 1 to 4, history, and theory classes. It's common to also take your college core classes while taking your architecture classes. But what does this all mean? Well, let's go over it. For your history of architecture classes, you will learn an overview of all the changes that have happened in architecture, from the ancient Egyptians to the Byzantine Empire, the Romans, the Gothic, and of course modern architecture. The point of these history classes is to help you understand why architecture exists the way it does and why it functions so differently in different parts of the world at different times in history. You're going to learn a lot about cultures, religion, politics, and technology, and how each of those categories help shape and evolve architecture. Theory of architecture is a class where you will simply discuss architecture. For example, sometimes you'll talk about the psychology of space, other times you'll talk about the biggest failures in architecture and why they failed. These classes allow you to go really in depth and study very important topics about architecture. Architecture theory is like the philosophy of architecture, where you begin to develop a deeper understanding on why architecture is the way it is and how it could be better or worse. You're also going to be learning a lot about how to create architectural plans, especially by hand. You won't be making these plans by hand in upper division classes or even in the professional world. That's what we have computers for. But it's really important that you understand how to create these plans using the techniques they used just a few decades ago. These technical drafting classes are really hands-on and can get expensive. You might have to buy Mylar and vellum paper, which is really high quality translucent paper that you can use to draw on using technical drafting pencils or pens. All these tools get really expensive over time, and you're going to have to continue purchasing them when they run out. Check out my description for a list of things you might need to buy for these classes. Finally, the classes that will consume most of your time will be the design classes. There are 4 of these in lower division. The point of these classes is to allow you to learn all the principles that you've learned in your other classes and apply them to create your very own designs. You'll learn about the fundamentals or principles of design, you'll learn what a concept is and how to generate one, you'll learn how to make diagrams that help you understand how neighborhoods are put together, and of course, you're going to be designing a lot. These are the classes that most students enjoy. The first and second design level, you're going to focus a lot on drawing or drafting by hand. You'll be making a lot of models by hand as well. Your projects will be small, and you might have more of them each semester because the point is to practice on as many different types of designs as possible. My first semester consisted a lot of spatial models and a pavilion. The pavilion was my favorite project that semester because all the other spatial composition projects felt way too random to me and I really had no idea what I was doing. As you advance in your design classes, your projects will grow more and more complex, and your professors will expect your designs to become more sophisticated. You will also rely on computer software to keep up with the demand of the work that they ask you for. You will be using programs like AutoCAD to make 2D plans, Rhino and SketchUp to create 3D volumes, Maya and 3ds Max to create really interesting 3D volumes, Revit to speed up your production speed, V-Ray to render, and Photoshop and InDesign to add the finishing touches. These are just to name a few. You don't need to know all the programs I just mentioned, by the way. As you move on through the levels, you'll decide which programs will suit your needs best. Your models will also become more complex, and therefore you're going to need to rely on technology to help you as well. You'll use awesome tools like laser cutters that cut objects that you draw out of wood using a very powerful laser, 3D printers, and in some schools, you might even use robotic arms. Of course, you're going to participate in the infamous pinup, and you're going to do this very often. You will have about 3 types of pinups. The first kind is where your professor makes everyone literally stick all the work that they've done on a wall, and everybody takes turn presenting their work to the rest of the class. The second is similar, except everyone pins up, but only one person presents at a time to the professor, while everyone else continues to work on their project. These are common when the professor wants to offer advice on your work while allowing others to continue progressing. The third kind of pinup is the midterm or final pinups. These are the most formal ones. It consists of combining classes and studios together and having each student present their work to other studios, professors, and faculty. These are the most nerve-wracking at first because you won't be used to presenting to other classes and professors. These are great though because it's the best way to get an opinion on your work from a lot of fresh new eyes. It's really common that after these kind of pinups, you'll have a lot of new ideas for your projects. Once you reach upper division, your projects will be extremely complex, requiring you to work in teams for some of them. You'll be learning about structures, and you'll take a few classes that will teach you how to calculate successful structures for your very own projects. You'll continue learning about history and theory, and you'll also start learning about materials and how they're put together in detail in an actual project. Finally, you'll take classes that teach you how to put professional sets of architectural drawings together, and at the very end, you'll do your thesis project. The definition of thesis really depends on your school and your professor, but in my case, it was 2 semesters long, and my thesis professor allowed me to pick my own topic. Once my topic was chosen, my thesis professor guided me by giving me tasks to complete each week. Some weeks I had to email companies, other weeks I had to meet up with these companies. Sometimes I had to travel to sites to gather inspiration and information. Thesis was something that always worried me in architecture because I never knew what I wanted to pick as my thesis project. As a matter of fact, this was very common with other students. If you're like me, I want to tell you not to worry about what your topic will be, if your school allows you to pick your own topic, of course. What I will tell you is that every semester, pay very close attention to what interests you in architecture. It doesn't matter if you're very specific or very general, but every time you think of something that intrigues you, write it down. When it's time for you to pick a thesis project, you'll have a long list of things that have interested you in architecture along the way. I'm sure that many of you watching this who are interested in studying architecture are probably very nervous and are thinking about choosing another career. But first, I want to point out a couple of things. Number 1, this was made based on my own experience. Although architecture school is very similar universally, there are still major differences that can impact your experience. Number 2 is that the part that intimidates most students is the pinups, the public speaking part. I don't think that you should pick a new career simply because you feel like you won't be able to speak in public. As a matter of fact, before I studied architecture, I was a really quiet person that got nervous when the spotlight was put on me. Today I'm still quiet and I still do get nervous when they put the spotlight on me, but I know how to handle that situation way better. This is only because of the amount of public speaking I did when I was in school. So if you're shy or nervous or quiet, don't let that discourage you. You'll get better at speaking in public, and after a while, it will seem very natural to you, and you'll be so grateful you did this. I hope this video has given you an idea of what architecture school is like. It's really challenging at times, but it's also really fun. You'll learn a lot, and you'll make a lot of great friends. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. See you down in the comments.